Indiana can sort of cement itself as we are no longer this team that's going to be fighting for 6 wins anymore.
It's Malachi Toney. Is he going to be ready?
Dante Moore, he showed improvement, better command.
What's going on, y'all? Bud Elliott here of the Cover 3 College Football Podcast, and this is Summer School. We are back in session with another big-time episode here. Florida State, that's Brendan Sonnone, Noles247. Excellent writer covering all things FSU for us. And Brendan, what's going on, man?
I'm chilling. It's summertime. It's time to kick up our feet a little bit, relax, take some inventory. What's been, what hasn't been, what will be. I don't know when this drops. We're not quite at crazy busy recruiting season yet. It's a little bit of a lull, but those don't last a whole lot. When was the last time you've just had like 2 or 3 weeks of like quiet time doing this job? But it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, because I do all these summer schools, it's like,
Right.
all right, I do kind of like buy myself a little bit of summer vacation. It's like,
Oh,
all
you
right,
do?
I'm
Well,
gonna do 70 episodes in the can, and like
and
we'll
then
probably do cover.
that's yeah.
We'll
So
do
you're
cover 3
putting in
live.
your hours, it's just distributed differently. I got you.
Yeah, exactly. Like Monday morning, I open up like starting at 6:30 a.m. I'll do Tuesday nights till 10. Let's just get all these done. Oh man. A little bit disappointing year last year, 5-7. Certainly better than what 2024 was, which was kind of unwatchable. Darrell Jackson off to the NFL. It's kind of a short list to recap that. Earl Little Jr. transfers to Ohio State. Sawchuk is out. McCoy's out. Moore's out. All of the offensive line exhausted their eligibility, and we have new coordinators as well, or at least one. We'll start on offense, I guess. So Norvell's calling the plays, correct? How do you expect this to change as far as, regardless of personnel, like style-wise, how is this going to look different than what Malzahn wanted to run?
Yeah, I mean, we do know what a Mike Norvell run offense looks like. We've seen it. We've seen the good and the bad. We've seen it being a top 15, 20-ish, top 10 to 20 offense before. We've seen it be a top 30 offense before. And then we've seen it crumble to be the 125th nationally before. So, and that unfortunately, I learned this from you, Bud, back years ago. The most recent data size is usually the data set is usually the most important sample size. And so, the last time we saw Mike Norvell calling plays was 2024. We know how that went offensively. It was offensive. And then they bring in Gus Malzahn, who it is the same tree. Gus's system is a little bit more simplified, I think, less in-depth reads and route choices and stuff, but still similar, especially with like the terminology. That's what Mike based a lot of his stuff on when he was coming up as a play caller. So how will it look different? Probably a lot less of the jet sweep motion stuff. I think we'll see. We know that Gus Malzahn loves his inside zone and doing that with Herb Hand. That's an interesting dynamic. Is Mike's offenses have always been pretty eclectic with their bread and butter for a running scheme. It changes every couple of years or so, but Herb Hand still remains as the offensive line coach. So, stylistically, optically, I don't know how it's going to look exactly, but I do think it'll have its, probably a 25 to 35% variation of what we saw last year in terms of style with Malzahn's offense.
Gotcha. So they bring in Ashton Daniels from Auburn by way of Stanford originally. What did they see in him that made him a good fit for what we think that they want to do?
I like how you danced around that.
I'm like, they're bargain shopping clearly, but
to their own admission too. They've talked about as John Garrett did talk about that, and we have heard different figures for exactly what it is for the price for Ashton Daniels. Regardless, it's not, you weren't resetting a market. He was probably the cheapest of the 3 options that you brought in when you were looking at the transfers with Calandria and DJ Lagway. So that was a factor. It's not the first time we've heard Florida State balling on a budget, and probably won't be the last time for a little while for the foreseeable future. Kind of shrug my shoulders for those listening. That is what it is with Ashton Daniels specifically. So I think the area where you can talk yourself into it, because if you're familiar with his whole entire body of work, I'm not sure how much people who are on the West Coast were from his time at Stanford. When I say it was up and down, it was just consistently up and down. He threw as many touchdowns as interceptions, or pretty darn close to it, as like a 2-year starter there. Some running success, but generally like just not not an efficient passer. And he wasn't someone who was taking a bunch of deep shots and making high-level throws either. And so that was a weakness. Now he goes to Auburn. He's not the starter for most of the year. The plan was to redshirt him. He ends up playing in the final 4 games of the season after Hugh Freeze is fired. He takes over as the starter, I think, in the final 3 games. And there was some good moments. I would say more ups than downs for the first time in his career. I know the raw stats don't show that, but you watch some of the games. And once they kind of tailored the offense to him, the last 2 were kind of encouraging. So to take that all full circle, but to answer your question, I think when you ask what they saw, it's those last couple games is what they're banking on. Okay, can we take someone who's been a below average performer for the entirety of his starting career, but at the very end of it showed propensity to be above average with some glimpses of good? Can they get that out of him and surround him with a supporting cast to be a run-oriented RPO quarterback who can occasionally hit some deep shots? I mean, I think that's what the blueprint is. If it works, that's how it's going to work. Whether that does or doesn't, we've heard mixed things coming out of spring ball. Sounded like it started well, ended well. The middle was kind of kind of on par with, I guess, who he's been this career. But yeah, so I shrugged my shoulders again. I'm not entirely sure what to expect, but I have a decent idea of what it's looked like at this point, and odds are it'll probably continue to reflect what it's generally looked at since he started being a starting quarterback.
I mean, if he's any decent at all, he's got a really nice skill core to throw to and hand it off. I mean, they go and get Trey Wisner from Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I mean, there's more guys in this backfield who I think at least coming out had real recruiting pedigree and are still around as well.
I like what we've heard about the running game in general from spring practice. Caveat, as I liked what we heard and saw from the running game, frankly, in 2024 preseason as well. And it was one of the worst in the country. Now, there's all sorts of reasons why it ended up falling off a cliff as rapidly as it did. And could probably spend an entire episode talking about that. Maybe one day we will, right? There's a tell-all for the 2024 season. I think that still exists out there in the ether somewhere. But in grain of salt, is does that mean the run offense is good? The run defense is bad? I don't know, but we do know, okay, Trey Wisner comes in from Texas. That's a guy who had, 2 years ago, 1,000 yards of total offense. It's interesting. You do the barometer of how a fan base responds to someone leaving. That's kind of it's not always an indicator, but it's a decent one of if they're all wishing him good luck, that's not a great sign. If they're all saying good riddance, that's not a great sign either. Necessarily when they're all saying they're going to miss him, I think that's kind of your sweet spot. And that was kind of the response we saw generally from Texas. He's not an outstanding runner, but is efficient, clever, crafty, and a good presence in that room. I think the way I view him is if you can get Trayshawn Ward level production from him, which you should, if FSU fans remember that a few years ago, that level of efficiency, that's a win. But ultimately, I think if you're going to be good on the ground, you need Usman Chroma to be the dude, right? That's the former, top 5 running back nationally. Watch him against Alabama last year. There are moments where that dude not just belonged, but you see him being a potential impact player. I think he had issues as the year went on with just kind of the speed of the game, processing things. Now we see, does it slow down for year 2? Does having Trey Wisner in the room help him? That's the one guy who I think, Bud, we heard the most about this spring in terms of just consistently making big plays in scrimmages, in organized, good on good drills and practice. That's what the feedback we got the most of was him. So I think if your ground game is good, and then Ashton Daniels helps with that too. He is a big quarterback, decent running ability in his career, not elite, but that's again though. I feel we've talked about that before, DJ Uiagalelei years ago, right? We've talked about that before of someone being a bigger guy who can run some. It has to happen. That didn't happen with DJU. 2 years ago, we saw Tommy Castellanos this past year, not a bigger guy, wear down. That has to exist. That has to be a part of what you do, I think, for this run game to be good. But I am with you. I do like the running back room generally.
Yeah, I mean, I usually ask, okay, is there one guy who, if he just really reaches his ceiling, it changes this side of the ball? It's Chroma, right? I mean, you're playing the ACC. Like those teams average 2.2 draft picks per team, and a pretty good majority had 1 or 0. Miami and Clemson are doing a lot of lifting there. Obviously, if he's a legit, playing at a level that would be a superstar in the Big Ten or SEC, that's kind of easy mode for a lot of these games that you play against these teams just aren't any good. Not that Florida State's good this year or anything like that, but like if he can be that guy they hoped he would be a year ago, like that's an unlock.
It is. Now, does it exist? Like, I know from a physical or talent perspective that exists, but does the ability, I mean, he's talked a lot about, vision and kind of pacing some of the tempo with the runs. It's not an area of where I know enough about it. My expertise level stops here to like know, how much does that improve year over year of speed and processing ability? Like, how much better does that get? Or is that something that exists? Never exists, right? At least to the level where it needs to be at for here. At Power 4 football. So that is a variance that I don't know how to account for. I would like to think that the game can slow down for people though. And it's just like you go back, like Dalvin Cook as a true freshman. It's like that vision, the way he processed the game, it seemed like he was moving at a different speed, the way he was interpreting everything around him. And that was from the word go, right? Like you just tell he was special with that. So I don't know. I don't know, but he is, if I were doing a list of like wild cards, I've got like 2 in mind, but he's the top on offense. The other one we could say for later would be on defense. But yeah, he changes the complexion to where I think you could be. I think the offense could be top 30-ish this year, but you need Ashton Daniels to hit. You need one of your running backs to pop off, and then I think you just need stability on the offensive line. You should feel like okay at wide receiver. I generally like that group with Deuce Robinson leading the charge, but like to your point, I kind of like the skill talent on this team. I don't want to be overly negative. I think if the quarterback is decent and you get a star performer somewhere at the skill position, yeah, I think you have enough there in the ACC to be a legitimately good offense.
For sure. Obviously, you mentioned Deuce. He's a stud, but beyond him, like, is Danzy the clear 2 on this team? I thought he took some cool strides last year.
Yeah.
McCoy transferred out to Louisville to go be their receiver 3. How does the rest of this room shake out?
So with Danzy, that's a guy who's Mekhi Danzy for the national audience, like is a legit like track star. He is a All-American in the 400. He is excellent. And we saw that real speed show up in the Gus Malzahn offense. I will say, like a caveat, like I think the Gus Malzahn offense is made really well for Mekhi Danzy. I think there's the jet sweep game and some of the spacing things they do fit in well. We'll see if Mike can take that and formulate it somewhat similarly. But that was a guy who was in year 2 of his career, made a big jump from his redshirt season to his redshirt freshman season. We'll see if he can continue it again. He didn't practice a ton in the spring because it was track season. But that should be your number 2. And I thought what was really cool was some of his ball skills and some of the physicality too that I didn't know was quite in his game. I thought that flashed at times last year. So now we get to see if that gets enhanced in his second full season as a contributor. But he should be considered the wide receiver 2 entering the season. And then for the wide receiver 3, I think you're kind of jockeying with a few different pieces. Javon Boggs comes to mind. He's someone who played and started as a true freshman. They talked him up a good deal last offseason. He got injured earlier in the year, and just it was never he was never able to stack it together to the level where it matched the hype. They had 100 receiving yards. But Tim Harris, who was one of the people who I thought was kind of pumping the brakes on him, the actual position coach, which in hindsight we probably should have listened to more clearly. He's made legitimately big strides. He went off in a scrimmage. I think it was the first one, and then he got hurt in that scrimmage. He should be back for the regular season, but it's kind of so far early in his career, the data set says he's gotten hurt a few times. So the other name that I would really keep an eye on is Devin Carter, and that is an FSU legacy recruit. Someone who FSU had to go and splurge on and push the envelope a little bit to get him to flip from Auburn back in the summertime. So it's a big investment. They need him to be good based on the way they're paying him. And I think the encouraging news based out of spring, he sounds like he was good and consistently good too. And when I say that, he's making plays downfield and they're getting him the ball in different ways, and he's actually creating, which was cool. A year ago, 2 years ago, there's been multiple springs now where they've lost a lot of wide receivers and tight ends in the spring. This year wasn't a whole lot different, Bud. I think the difference was you had a freshman or two step up and actually kind of keep things going to at least an extent to where you weren't just completely like DOA on that. And so that I take as a data point that struck me as like, oh, you were without Danzy, Boggs was out for a good chunk of it, Deuce was in and out of the lineup, and you could still somewhat pass the ball without great quarterback play. Like, okay, I'm listening. That'll be a guy to watch in the fall.
Offensive line wise, I mean, all 5 starters are gone. Do you have any idea what to make of this group? I mean, Chaplin had some moments at Auburn after coming over from Virginia Tech, I think it was. The rest of these guys, I don't know. I don't really know what to expect from this group. Do you?
I don't know what to expect because it's all entirely new. Chaplin, if you get the 2024 Virginia Tech version of him, and I think you feel pretty good. I'm trying. So right now they talk about like having 8 or 9 pieces that they feel good with. Yeah, we kind of hear that every year, and sometimes that plays out, sometimes it doesn't. And so they bring in Xavier Chaplin. I think there's variance there based on how he performed in the SEC last season. You bring in Nate Pabst, who was I want to say 3-year starter at Bowling Green, and he got better year over year. I will say that, but this is still a big jump up. And he's someone who started at both tackle spots, both guard spots. I think they've used him both guard and tackle. I think he will start no matter what. The name, and I want to try to pull up and make sure I'm pronouncing it correctly. Oh, good. There's not a pronunciation guide on the website. Shmita, it's Weiwu.
We got to get a nickname for this guy.
Yeah, Weiwu. I think the N is silent. No Weiwu. But anyways, he comes from the FCS level. He's actually kind of like physically. I remember seeing him on the official visit. I'm like, oh, that looks a little different in terms of how he's built. And I think that was when initially we were anticipating him being a swing tackle his first year. He's a redshirt junior, but a little bit more on the raw side. His brother was a walk-on at North Texas. I think went to Oklahoma and ended up being a starter at center there and a good one. And so kind of similar, like kind of underrated in high school. And he had some decent options coming out of the transfer portal. But as the spring progressed, it's become clear. I think they want him to be the starter at right tackle. We'll see if he's consistent enough for that. But his good is apparently very good. I think it's a matter of it being consistent right now. So those are about 3 names that are in the mix that we've talked about. Andre Otto is one who's been around for a while. They've been very high on him in the past. Kind of transitioned from being a center to a guard. I think he's been a steady, he's part of the option at left guard. And then it's whether it's like Braden Joyner, who's another multi-year, 1.5 starter, was at Auburn for a little bit. Purdue last year wasn't particularly good at Purdue at center. I think they're trying him at center this year, but he might be a right guard. He might be a center. And so, yeah, it's a lot of ifs there. Typically, I'm not a big fan of that because the optimistic outlook of if this all happens, it doesn't necessarily. They trade. The one interesting thing that I'll note on the offensive line is they traded some of the floor, with the last year's team being all a bunch of 5th-year seniors for a mixture. Because I think they want there to be some sustainability moving forward. Some of these guys are 5th-year or 6-year guys, and you plug and play, and then they're gone. But someone like Braden Joyner, Weiwu, I think you're hoping those are multi-year guys for you. And so, I guess it's a long way of me saying we'll see with that group. I don't feel great about it. I don't feel awful about it either. But that being said, the variance, it could be really good. It could be really bad. It'll probably end up being somewhere in between.
All right, man. This is great on offense, somewhere between, kind of average to pretty good. Well, I guess we'll see. All right, let's take our first break here. And on the flip side, we will hit the defense, little schedule, little outlook, and enjoying this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ hits every highlight from all the sports that matter to you.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, streaming free 24/7.
All right, guys, welcome back into the Cover 3 College Football Podcast. This is a summer school edition with Brendan Sonnone, Noles247. We're breaking down the Florida State Seminoles for the 2026 season here. All right, defensively, coaching continuity for the most part, so that's solid there. They do lose a big piece on the defensive line, Daryl Jackson, who was pretty good for them last year, and just a huge guy. What
are you familiar with the Noles 24/7 inside joke of Daryl Jackson?
It's like, is he good or not? There's is he good?
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, you just said he was pretty good, so I'd take that as a
I think
pretty.
he's a good player. And way better than anybody else they had on that defensive line last year. Way better. I thought. If you watch it, he's the guy that's drawing the doubles. You had some young guys who were getting a lot of solo blocks, and now they'll be called upon, it looks like, based on what they brought in the transfer portal, which is not much, to step up and be the new guys you're going to have to deal with having more attention. How do you think that's going to go?
I have my doubts.
Yeah.
I do think they have. I think they have a decent amount of depth with viable options, but whether there's impact options there, that's what I have concerns about. So thinking about the defensive line, they're banking. So here's what they're banking on. I think maybe that might be the best way to kind of break it down. Is okay, who's being relied upon and what have they done previously in their career and what's the outlook? Daniel Lyons is someone that they're saying is, Tony White's talked about this on record, of him being an all ACC level performer on the defensive line. To this point, we haven't seen that. Now, he was dealing with an injury for the beginning part, of last season. We'll see. I mean, this is a redshirt senior. This is someone who he's never been bad. He's never been good. We'll see whether he's able to make a big jump or not. Again, I kind of go back to what we talked about the previous segment with Ashton Daniels. Is when you have a big body of work, it's there can still be some growth in a new system or new coach or something that kind of sparks it towards the end. But generally, I think we have a decent idea. So that's one piece that they're banking on as being kind of a malleable move across the defensive line type. The Desir brothers, obviously a dramatic offseason with the Twins. But those are two guys who were had good moments and honestly some really good moments for Mandrell. We had 6.5 sacks as a true freshman. Honestly, I thought Daryl Desir, go back and watch the NC State game. There's something there, and he was supposed to be the better of the two coming out of college or coming out of high school, excuse me. And anyways, there's something there with the two of those guys. They need them to be good because they're paying them, kind of like the Usman Chroma dynamic where you're paying those guys to be good players. You need them. And so those are, your big three, I think. Raylan Kennedy is my wild card on defense. He comes from Texas A&M, an edge defender who was a pass rush specialist at A&M on a pretty good defensive line. But even that was they used him as almost like a stand-up quarterback spy a lot of the time. It wasn't even a pass rush specialist. So it was an interesting role for him. It's pointed to his, he was a basketball player. He was a really high level, I think long jump in track. I think he was an all-state guy there. It was either high jump or long jump. I can't remember, but a really good athlete. Hadn't played football a lot and has had some decent moments. His pressure rate was good last year. It was, again, sub packages. It was almost 20%. So there's something there, but he goes from being, a situational piece on a really good defensive line to all of a sudden being a focal point on a defensive line that's devoid of other proven star power. He's not the biggest guy around. He's probably in the 245-ish range. So they're relying on him to be fast. And apparently, this is one thing we heard and as camp went on, he got progressively better. Going back, is that the offensive line that he's taking advantage of? Is that him being good? I don't know. That's one of the things we'll see. But that is someone that they like. Other names, Kevin Wynn is someone they need to be good. When you talk about losing Daryl Jackson, that was your block eater a year ago, and Daryl was sometimes it's commanding triple teams in some area. Have you stopped and paused real quick? There was 3 guys blocking him, but still impressive. Kevin Wynn, former 4-star guy, high-end talent who FSU had to splurge for to get 2 years ago, was injured a lot as a rookie. Didn't grade out particularly well when he did play, took a redshirt year. He slimmed down a little bit. He's played at a lower level of football in Georgia, but was just really strong and a fun old school type of nose tackle type.
Yeah.
You need him to be good though. That's just him and Jordan Sanders was a high use reserve at Texas State. Those are your 2 big pieces inside that you need them to all step up. So the only other name, Deontay McCray, I would say they like him as a just a steady kind of, he's lined up as a 1 tech. He can line up pretty much anywhere inside the tackle box and be solid there. He's strong. He's a little undersized, but yeah, man, there's a lot of pieces on the defensive line. I think there's a lot of capable ones. I don't know where the star power comes from, and it's tough to be a elite defense without a real difference maker. So unless someone really takes a big jump, I do think your ceiling is relatively low, and you're just kind of hoping that you have a higher floor to be average. I think if you can get average play from that group, maybe there's enough around you to be, to end up being a capable defense within a good offense on the other side of the ball.
So defensive back wise, they lose the second. Like they lost their two best defenders off this team. One to the draft, the other to Ohio State. And Little Jr. I think. I mean, he certainly got paid like it. And I trust Ohio State staff a hell of a lot more than I trust Florida State staff. They're expecting him to start and take that Caleb Downs role.
Yeah, Earl's a potential NFL guy. He's just he was inconsistent. But his we saw his good was freaking awesome, man. So if he hits and he could be really good. I thought Jabril Rawls was their best player in the secondary last year. And they did bring him back, and that was a big win for them. I don't want to understate that. I was pretty salty when they were looking like they were going to lose him. And they ended up retaining him. I think they paid handsomely for that, more than you would like to retain. Usually there's a hometown discount for that. But I would say in the secondary, like Jabril's prior dude, you bring him back. Ashton Barker was actually really good at the start of last season at safety. Before he had a shoulder injury that just was a big physical safety who was in pain whenever he hit someone. Like it's a toughie. He seems like he's better now, and he takes over the Earl Little Rover spot. So those were some of the returners there. It's not a bad group that you're bringing back. It's a lot Bud based on you're relying on transfers, I think, across the board, and then you got to hope you hit those evals correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. So turning to the schedule here. I said the line about the ACC schedule, hey, it's 2.2 draft picks per team. The problem is, which this is good for entertainment for fans, but the problem is they play the top 6 on FanDuel's current odds to win the conference and 7 of the top 8.
All right, I'm pulling up the schedule now.
So they're not getting right. So the top 6 in order to win the league: Miami, SMU, Louisville, Clemson, Pitt, Virginia. Okay, they get all 6. Vatech 7, they dodge them. Then they get NC State. So they get the top 6 and 7 the top 8. That's, and then they get BC, which legitimately could be terrible. Again, that's difficult. When I saw them working in the transfer portal, I was like, okay, you know what? They don't have big goals anymore right now with this administration and this staff, clearly, based on their spending and their understanding of the market or lack thereof. But what they're cobbling together could be fine against the regular ACC schedule. They just don't get that. They with their draw this year, it will be great for TV ratings, but because they're still a helmet school. But this is plus Alabama in the non-conference and Florida.
Yeah. So you got those two.
Yeah. I mean, you're what, 13th in the odds to win the league because in large part because of the schedule. If you flop them in Pitt's schedule, I don't know if you've seen Pitt. I think Pitt plays one of the top 7. I feel like
there's always one ACC school. I'm sure it's like that for every conference, but there's always one. It usually feels like it's North Carolina or something.
I did Pitt yesterday. It was just off the top of the head, and I was this is a very challenging schedule for, let's say they're somewhere in that 25 to 45 range as far as team quality, which is not insane. I don't think they're gonna be maybe they're 25 to 50. If you're in that range, this is pretty tough.
What's Vegas's win total here as of late April, early May when we're recording?
Are they 5.5 or are they 6.5?
That seems kind of generous. Yeah, I forgot if it was 5.
Yeah,
6.5 seems
I don't
generous.
have them going bowling.
Yeah, I mean 6. I'm kind of out on the making predictions.
6.5 juice under.
Yeah. So that sounds right. Okay, cool. So yeah, the schedule. I mean, the big question I think. I'm going to flip this on you. So the big question that we keep getting is at what point is this hot seat in the schedule? When would the Flames reach so high to where it's unbearable? What would the start? Because you have, all right, you should beat New Mexico State starting the season. When you host SMU, and then you have a bye, and then you're at Alabama. So the first 3 games of the season, some really interesting. And then you get Central Arkansas, which is Mike Norvell's alma mater. So by the first month of the season, does he survive that? I think he should, right? Even if he's 2-2, depends how it looks. But at what point in the schedule do you start kind of monitoring that Bud as a national pundit to be okay, when do we have to start getting ready to talk about these Flames reaching so high to where this is unavoidable at this point?
I mean, we'll raise that as a question in September for sure, because it's, if you judge Florida State by any normal FSU standard, he would have been gone last year. But
or the year before.
right, yeah, like you go 2-10 FSU, that should be fireable. Obviously, like there were some weird circumstances that year. Some of it they're doing, some of it was some bad luck. Like they wouldn't say it, but DJU was hurt, as well. Like that's now you kept playing them, but yeah.
Well, you need to have a great option, and you had an offensive line that you were banking heavily on, and life happened to all those. There's we could spend an hour.
That could be an hour easy. Man, I look at this though. Like, is there really that big a difference between like Pitt and Georgia Tech, for Virginia and Cal? Like, I know that like they're in an ordinal ranking that you get the top 6 and 7 of the top 8, but I'm a little like clearly Miami, SMU, Louisville. Yeah. After that, like, do we know what Clemson's going to be? I did their summer school. I didn't come away thinking they're amazing.
They seem to have some issues there.
It feels kind of jumbled up to me there after you get past the first 3 in this league. Like BC and Stanford, I think, are pretty clearly the bottom 2. I'd be surprised if that is not the final order. And I'd be shocked if Mensa stays healthy, doesn't make the championship game. And I would kind of be surprised if they lost any games in the league.
Miami, they should be really good. I like Louisville. So Louisville's like 3rd in the league, right? Because I thought that would be a nice dark horse pick. I really like what they do in the transfer portal, but I guess it's not a dark horse. So what would then be needed? Because
I think if you make a bowl game against this schedule, based on their prior actions, I think he's probably safe.
Well, so then what makes you feel, because you've dabbled in, obviously, for more than dabbled, you were the voice of Florida State podcast for a very long time until they basically broke you this past year. And now the national scope you offer is like at an elite level. So if you could take a step back from, remove what the fans would feel good about here locally, what would nationally catch your attention to be like, oh, all right, maybe Mike can figure it out a little. Maybe he's got it to where turn. Like, what does that even look like? 'Cause that's the thing I've had a hard time of. Like, what would make you feel good about Mike Norvell being retained and then building something for the future at this point?
I think if they had like good traction with recruits, right? Like that's something you can kind of control, and then like obviously lose them because the money's not there because they have not done a good job planning on that. But like at least like if I was seeing, hey, like the relationships are good, like the some of the new staff he has assembled are actually like getting kids on campus and making real contacts, and we're hearing like, hey, like the recruiting operation is better, which I'm not hearing so far personally at all. So like I'm not convinced that like that is better. It could actually be worse in some ways. But
it's fine. I think they have the best recruiters they've had on staff under Mike Norvell, like the top end of it. But I just,
I'm just not sure this front office revamp is like some. I'm buyer beware on that.
I'll let the guy not covering recruiting talk about that. How about that? You go for it. Just
stuff you hear. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on that yet. I'll still wait for more evidence. I'm not sure it's worse, but I'm not sure it's better yet. Obviously, like Daniels is a 1-year thing. So like maybe if the backup, if Sperry, who they kind of hyped a lot last year behind the scenes, like maybe if he actually show and prove and all of a sudden he leads them to, bowl game or somehow they pull out 7 wins or something like that, possibly.
Okay.
If you want a road game in conference, that could be interesting. I mean, you got a couple opportunities here, like at Louisville, at Miami, at Boston College.
There it is. What is that? That's in November? Yeah, 7th, November 7th.
But they'll make that red bandana game, and BC will play like.
Oh, is that a Friday game?
It's November 7th. No.
It's just darn Saturday.
And then at Pitt, like it's just hard to see a lot of like what could you get off this team that makes you really confident going forward? Probably some of the younger guys that they recruited playing well.
Yeah.
And like, not multiple problems in recruiting, I guess. Like just, maybe a beginning to understand the actual like price of players and what it's going to take. I don't know.
Yeah, that's been a issue for them the last few years.
Like you talked about not getting a hometown discount on Rawls. Like, guys, dudes who play at that level are going to get $1 million.
Yeah.
Like that's not like you're not paying a premium on that. That's just the market rate.
And hopefully, like with that's the one thing well, not the one thing, but a thing we can be critical of was the timing of it. I know they've explained, why it took a while to get the to get the front office together. And so maybe with time and continuity, you have a better feel for that. Like that's if you're looking for silver lining, but it didn't do you any favors, I think, in putting together this roster. And right now, again, we're recording this in late April, early May before the OV season really takes off. Like the prospects for elite prospects aren't like super, like you'll get some important visitors in there, but this is such a momentum based entity to cover now, recruiting, especially the NIL stuff. You can kind of figure out like what teams are trending based on just like, okay, where they're visiting and who's willing to pay them. And you kind of get an idea of all that ahead of time now, whereas less surprises. And it just doesn't feel like you would think it's the opposite, but it's just like the money talks and like the players talk to the programs that offer money. And so I think we have a litmus test coming up ahead of us to see what Florida State can do from a recruiting standpoint. But yeah, there's for years been elements of misreading the market. And now you feel like you're further behind the market. And that's where you start. I know you said before this, we're not going to get into doom and gloom. But that's where you do start getting nervous about the long-term outlook of the roster beyond of like Mike Norvell makes it through 2026 or not. And so I just don't know what the catalyst is for all that to change other than steady, slowly, consistent winning. And I just don't know what position you're in to do that right now.
Or a steady, slow, consistent improvement. Like even if you have the runway, for that, obviously. Look, I mean, you can't just hand wave away really bad business decisions, and like Florida State's position on where NIL was going was in the extreme minority compared to the other people in the sport who run teams and programs that I talk to. And they're like, I thought the title today on the bench was great. I mean, On the Bench is a great Florida State podcast. Noles247 runs, like absolutely the best one to listen to. The cosmic IRS is here and the tax is coming due. Yeah, like you can't just all of a sudden flip the switch like, all right, hey, now we get it, right? Like those are decisions that you consciously made, and they were incorrect reads of the market, and you're gonna have to pay for it for several years now, probably. And regardless, paying in some ways.
Regardless if it was the coach not fundraising correctly, the athletic director misreading where it was going to go, administration not being prepared for whatever it is, like the synchronicity that they used to have. We talk about everyone being in alignment, like doesn't feel like it exists right now. And whatever the disconnect is, and there's fingers that could be pointed, and I think everyone would have some level of like realistic, like a case for that. But where we talk about where Florida State is right now, like I've gone back to this a lot recently, like, but in everything, like your lot in life is your lot in life. And like, yeah, you catch bad breaks, but ultimately, like you're in this room you're in right now for a reason. And it's based on at least a large part of the decisions that you've made. And that's kind of what I go back to for Florida State. Like this is, regardless of, they made bad investments, they had bad luck. It could be this, could be that, but the results are the results. And they've been 2 years of really bad results. With this third year, we go into it, the expectations aren't particularly high. And so you kind of just, again, go back to this, you shrug your shoulders at it. It's like, it is what it is at this point.
Yeah. I mean, if you ate like crap for 4 years in a row, even if you wake up the next day, like, hey, I get it now, I'm eat healthy. Like you're still like, that's a big hole to dig out of, it can't be an overnight thing.
Trust me. I have to tell
you didn't get there overnight. Yeah. Right. Like you didn't get there overnight. This was like repeatedly and increasingly dumber each time as the market continued to shift against you, like thinking that, like just holding fast to your position, like well into last cycle, until I think they realized like, oh shoot, okay, we're wrong.
Yeah.
But I think they know they were wrong now, but it's just like, there's no switch to flip. That's something that's going to take a little while to dig out of.
Right. Because you've been telling people for a while, this is how it's going to be. This is not how it is. And so, you've made investments otherwise. I know they say it doesn't come from all the same spot. And I agree that I get that, like a bond for a stadium, a 6-figure or 9-figure stadium renovation isn't the same as, a football roster each year, but still there's not so many people you can go to asking for money.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, hey, maybe we'll see each other at the bowl game if they make one.
Maybe.
Maybe Gasparilla Bowl in Tampa.
We're going to be dancing in Shreveport.
No, I'm not going to Shreveport.
Okay.
That. Jeez. No, nothing wrong with Shreveport, but I'm just not going to spend my vacation time.
You want to go to the Hustler Club? Are we allowed to say that? Cut it.
I think they have the last shoot. One of the media guys was joking about this. It was I think they either had like the last KFC buffet or something that still exists, or I don't know. Still no, but there's a casino. Like, it's there are worse places to go for bowl season.
If you say so.
Maybe. All right. Oh man, I'll see you.
See ya.